You are listening to another podcast series by the Sacred Art of Living community, honoring soul-sized questions.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daryl Williams, your host for this podcast series called Soul-Sized Questions. The spiritual exercises of St. Ignatius are a classic tradition offering insight for life's most important decisions. Regardless of our spiritual history, the exercises offer remarkably insightful rules for decision-making.
Can you imagine, and this thought just came to me, I don't think I've had this thought before, that if all of us, no matter what our traditions were in this global life we live, just said, whatever my gifts are, whatever my limitations are, loving God, dispose of them, use them according to your holy will. What would this world be like? That's the more, which for us individually in our culture means less. When I was 20 years old, I knelt in a chapel in Sheridan, Oregon, with a vow crucifix in my hand and a priest holding the Eucharist up in front of me, and I prayed that prayer when I took those vows. Many years have passed since then, and I didn't know what those words would mean at the time, and I still don't know. There's been a lot of water under the bridge. And part of what I run up against in my own life is how much I don't live that out, how much I can't even live it out, and do I even desire to live it out when I really hear what it means for me. So it's a beautiful prayer, and it's a hard prayer. And Ignatius certainly wasn't there when he first founded the society even. He grew into that as he went along. Before I had a video, which I'm going to show you today, when I used to talk on Ignatius, the other song I used before this one was Impossible Dream, because that was Ignatius before his conversion. It was all I'll climb every mountain, whatever all those words are. It's all about me, I, a total focus. This song's got a total focus, but it's you give me, you. It's totally shifted, but it's still got that same focus, but a total conversion experience. What I want to do today is spend the whole day with you on the art and practice of discernment. The reason I want to do that is because I think it is the foundation and gives the basics for all spiritual direction. If in faith fact it is true that our God is involved in our lives and our God has a preference for us, how do we sort out of all the stuff that's going on in our lives and all the voices we listen to and everything that pulls on it and all the desires and the urges that rise up? How do we sort out, distinguish, and name those that could be of God and those that might not be of God? That's what discernment is all about. And Ignatius not only picked up the tradition that came out of what Richard talked about last night as he showed from the Hebrew Scriptures, the Christian Scriptures, Paul, the fathers and mothers of the church. There was this whole sense of, we want to pay attention to where God is in our life so we can follow that in some way, that God moves in us. Ignatius not only, I think, had some of a grasp of that intellectually, he had an experience in his own life which was rather dramatic. I mean, he went from being a court jester or a court person who lived the good life to a dirty, smelly, long-haired, suicidal man. He lived in a cave for a while, and he just, all meaning in his life sort of disappeared for him. He also, I think what led to it was he really was doing a lot of penance for his past life, and he got into that kind of first fervor guilt stuff that really got him down. And so he just lost it for a while, and it was letting people take care of him that helped him come back again. I'd like you to stand for a minute, please. I don't want to stop yet or take a break, but I'd like us to move around. just because religious order up to his time went into the monastery, that the way to find God was away from the world. Ignatius said, no, you find God in all things. You find God in creation. You find God in the world. So Jesuits were to be contemplatives in action out here. I find God in the midst of my daily life. And so that's a whole huge shift. That's why he didn't want Jesuits doing the hours, going back to the monastery to do all the hours. He also did not want Jesuits to wear what monastic people wore, because at that time he felt he needed to be more connected to the people in the streets. They ended up wearing a cassock, but it was probably just the dress of the normal clergy at that time. The regular clergy, some of the clergy who were not educated but were serving the people, he wanted to identify more with that group of people in a spirit of poorness. Okay, can we sit down? I'm going to ask that another redwood be passed out. You're really going to get a rather thick handout this time. I don't think I'll hopefully not make another one like that from now on. But I really worked hard to get this down so you wouldn't have to take a lot of notes. I'll make comments in between as we go through it. What I want to spend the time on is trying to open up for you the theology, the art and practice of discernment. And this comes out of Ignatius' experience, out of the spiritual exercises. This is one copy of the exercises. In the exercises, which is for the director, by the way, a lot of people have tried to lockstep through this thing, and nothing happens that way. This just reflects and frozen in time what Ignatius' experience was. There is a section on the guidelines for discernment. So I want to give you what I consider to be, from my understanding in my own life and in my study, what the art and the practice of discernment is all about. I am not an expert. I am not a scholar. I've done enough study, maybe to make me dangerous, maybe to make me be able to understand it enough to find its meaning in my own experience, and when I'm sitting with somebody else, to be able to use these or give them to a person to see if it fits their experience and help them name their experience. So a theology of discernment really is based on, out of a human question, if there is a God and a God cares about me, why did God create me? In other words, what is it all about, Alfie? Now, when we get time to reflect, I would imagine that each one of us sometimes wonders or asks again, what is the purpose of my life anyway? I get caught up in all this stuff that's going on in my culture and in my life. But the ultimate question is, what is my life about? What is the purpose of it? What am I giving myself to? What is it ultimately that is meaningful? Or what is it that God desires of me? You know, what's God want me to do in some way in my life? And the question does not seek a catechism answer. It's not just an intellectual answer in the theology of discernment, but it's a theology that invites us into our own affective awareness. Because the question comes up out of the gut too. It's not just a head question. When I'm living with that, questioning my life and what it's about, I got feelings and affectivity around that. Sometimes I experience meaninglessness. Sometimes I experience aimlessness. Sometimes I experience a kind of discouragement that says, what's the use of all this anyway in my life? I don't know if you've had those feelings, but I would bet you have at some point. You put a ton of energy into something, you think it's the way to go, and it just falls apart. I thought that was God's will for me. You know, where is God's will anyway? What's that mean? Is there such a thing? Does God will that I suffer my whole life? You know, all those questions that comes up in people's experience. So this question, what's it all about? When it rises up from our core, really is asking for a gift to have an experience, not just an intellectual answer. So, The question, what we're asking is to experience not only an intense personal relationship with God, who is my creator. That's part of the, in quotes, answer, if I can experience this relationship. The question, the intellectual question, what is love, doesn't usually get answered from a book. It gets answered in relationship. And that was sort of Ignatius's insight. He experienced his relationship with God. I not only want the gift of experiencing God as one who loves, who cherishes, and forgives me. By the way, I should comment as an aside, you'll notice as we go through these notes, that sometimes it's me and sometimes it's us. Some of that's just because I can't keep track. And some of that is because I really want to open it up, that discernment is both something that individuals engage in their relationship with God, and communities do, or groups of people do, like the 7 companions with Ignatius. But also what I want to experience, and this is really important, I want to experience the one who is at every moment making me my life world and myself right now. By the way, I will leave some time for questions on this stuff too. I don't want to take questions right as I'm going through. I'll lose my train of thought. So, according to this theology anyway, I am in an intimate relationship with God. Remember 3 weeks ago I said we're stuck with it. That's a faith fact for me. I'm stuck in a relationship with God. I can turn my back on it. I can ignore it. I can just not have enough time for it. But my belief is I'm held in existence and held in love. So, if I'm in this intimate relationship, a spiritual direction or spiritual experience invites me into and beyond what God did back there, like creating me, to what God is doing now. I know that your experience, when you experience the deepest part of intimacy, I think it's when we're engaged with what's going on with us, between us now, right now at this moment. That's almost an experience of eternity. You can spend 5 hours with somebody in that now, and it seems like 5 minutes because you're not aware of the time. Well, God's creative activity is in the same way. I would bet, I put some phrases here that you may not relate to, but I'm going to guess you will. We experience ourselves as incomplete, still coming to be. I know I'm not done yet. I know I don't have it together yet, if that's my image of coming to be. I know I still can be more sensitive. I know I can be more compassionate. I know I desire to be more loving. All of that goes on in my hopes for myself and my life. Our experience of ourselves reveals to us that we're not minted once and for all like a coin. It didn't just happen back there at birth or whatever. It's still being shaped. We're an unfinished work of art, is Paul's language. I don't know how much you think of yourself as a work of art. You know, if you look at a painting, a Picasso painting, or you look at Michelangelo, or you look at David, or some of the sculptures around, you look at that and see it as art, and you're moved by it. Can you have the same experience standing in front of a mirror? That might be a good exercise. You're an unfinished work of art, and all that who you are. So a God who created us, past tense back there, once at our conception, does not fit our experience of ourselves. I'm not done yet. I'm still in the process of coming into the fullness of who I already am. My already but not yet dynamic. We experience that we are not yet fully who we are called to be or become. You've heard the Army, I think it's the Army, be all you can be. Well, I think there's more than that. There's the more. Is that all you, are you all you can be when you've bought into that in some way? So with this awareness, the concept that God's will or something out there is preordained from us from all eternity just doesn't make any sense. So if that's not the way to look at it, is there another way of looking at God's will? And I'll get to it on the next page about the difference between the blueprint model and the project model. I grew up with the blueprint model. So what understanding of God's will is taking place? God with us has hopes. Where? Where does God hope right now if God's involved in our lives? Within our self-realization of ourselves and for our life world. You mean God, and I think I said this last time, God is not dreaming out there behind Mars somewhere, that maybe where God dreams is right in here when I get in touch with it? Wow, that calls for a lot of trust. That calls for really owning my own inner experience in some way and being with it and trusting it and affirming it and trying to listen to what rises up within me.
Jack Kennedy is a special mentor to the Sacred Art of Living Center. If you would like to hear more of his wisdom on this subject, consider participating in one of our online 30-day retreat experiences. You can join others from your own home and at your own pace to benefit from the art of discernment in your everyday life. Go to our website, sacredartofliving.org, to learn more about these virtual retreat programs.